This call is now being recorded.
Welcome, friends. Today's talk is on karma and karmic agents, and I'm going to share my screen. Are you able to see the slides?
Yes.
Okay, great. Karma and karmic agents. Today we will discuss one of the most profound and mysterious ideas in theosophy, that of karma, and more specifically, how we all act as karmic agents. It might be a startling idea that in our ordinary unconscious actions, a word, a delay, an encouragement, even a seemingly accidental meeting may serve as karmic agency in the destiny of another. Or likewise, others may be the instruments through which we meet our own karma. First, let's discuss what is karma and how does it operate. H.P. Blavatsky defines karma as the law of ethical causation, not mere mechanical reaction, but a just and moral process flowing from the universal intelligence behind nature. She writes in The Key to Theosophy, karma is that unseen and unknown law which adjusts wisely, intelligently, and equitably each effect to its cause, tracing the latter back to its producer. As the law of ethical causation, it is implicated in every cause, whether that cause pertains to the macrocosmic or the microcosmic. Essentially, this means that nothing can happen which is outside of karma or outside of the law. Karma affects all beings all the way up to and including Brahma. It is said according to the Vishnu Purana that Brahma, the creator of the universe, himself is born of karma. When the balance of karma produces the conditions, Brahma arises to begin the new cycle. She continues to clarify that karma is not a localized or limited principle by echoing the Vishnu Purana. Quote, not even Brahma, the collective logos, can escape from its sway, unquote. By saying this, she is affirming that even the highest creative intelligences, Brahma, is subject to karma, demonstrating that karma is impersonal, universal, is a law, and not a moral code imposed by a deity. And in The Secret Doctrine, H.P. Blavatsky states that karma is one with the unmanifested logos. It is not the deity of any religion, but the emanation of the law from the absolute. In The Ocean of Theosophy, Mr. Judge states that every being of whatever grade is under the operation of the same law of karma. He emphasizes that karma operates from the lowest elemental forms up to the highest gods. This reinforces the principle that no being is exempt because all exist within the bounds of causality. No being can be absolutely self-originating except the unmanifested absolute, which is beyond karma, because it is beyond all manifestation and action altogether. It precedes and is unaffected by all that ever was, is, or shall be. He also states that there is no action unless there is a being to make it and to feel its effects. Everything that happens to any being has its antecedent cause, and that cause lies in some past action of the being himself. In other words, law rules on every plane of being, and every being of every grade is under that law. Further, he says that the law of karma is not some outside force, it is inherent in man himself. The law is not outside of us, it is inherent within us and with all of manifestation. It is the self within each who sets causes in motion and experiences their return. Karma is the working out of our own choices, ultimately driven by desire. Desire is therefore the basis of action in its first manifestation on the physical plane, and desire determines the continuation of the act in its karmic relation to the individual. We are all reaping what we have sown, individually and collectively, for we must know that we never act alone. We always act on and in connection with others, affecting them for good or evil, and we get the necessary reaction from the causes set in motion by ourselves. This presents to us the idea of absolute justice. For under such a conception of law, each being receives exactly what he gives. This also points to another idea, that there could not be action and its consequent reaction unless there were a community of beings amongst us. There must be that in our natures which is peculiar to none but common to all. In other words, we have all sprung from the same source. We are all traveling toward the same goal. The path differs only with the pilgrims. The causes that each one sets in motion determines the path that one must follow. This might be called destiny if we understand that it is a destiny of our own creation. Being created by us, it can be sustained by us or changed by us. If we do not like the destiny that befalls us, the effects that surround us, the conditions that encompass us, all we have to do is to set in motion such causes as will produce other and more desirable effects. But we have to do it. No one else can do it for us. No one holds us back, and no one propels us forward. There is no difference in our powers. Each one of us has the same power to perceive, to experience, and to learn. What we learn differs. Our experiences differ. Our perceptions differ. But that does not show a difference in our powers. It shows a difference only in the application of those powers. Each one of us contains within himself the same possibilities as exist anywhere and everywhere in the universe. The lines that we have taken up until now have brought us to whatever conditions and surroundings that we experience at the present time. But we might have gone another way and produced an altogether different environment. We ought to see that even now, however hampered we may be as a result of mistaken actions in the past, we have not lost and can never lose our power to set other and better causes in motion. The path toward all knowledge lies before us. The first thing that the student has to learn to perceive in everything and in every circumstance is the reign of law. We recognize law in part, but not in full. Mistaking our own nature by the very power of that nature, we set in motion causes that produce the results we now feel, and then call those results by such terms as destiny, fate, chance, or the will of God. The operation of law to most minds means a fate which befalls us, wherein we are benefited or afflicted, but over which we have no control, and in producing which we had no hand. Yet the operation of law can be easily understood. It has been enunciated by all the great teachers of the past as meaning action and its consequent reaction. Let us remember that these are not two separate and unrelated things, cause and effect, action and reaction. They are the two aspects of one and the same thing. In Sanskrit, both these aspects are included in the one word karma. But what happens when our karma entangles with that of others? This brings us to the concept of karmic agency, or conscious and unconscious instruments of karma. We are not islands and we never act alone. Indeed, this view is echoed in the voice of the silence, where the disciple is told, "Thou canst not travel on the path before thou hast become that path itself." And what is the path but the stream of evolving consciousness in which we are all immersed? Every thought, every emotion, every intention radiates outward, touching others in ways seen and unseen. The Mahatma letters speak of the tremendous occult power of thought, warning us that thoughts are not private. They live, they travel, they attach themselves to others of like vibration. So when we speak of karmic agency, we're not just referring to physical deeds, but to mental and emotional energies which reverberate in the subtle realms. As Mr. Judge reminds us, a single word of ours may have an influence for a lifetime upon another. Consider the long chain of consequences from a gesture of kindness or cruelty. The subtle nudge we give to another's soul's direction may take lifetimes to work out, yet the initial cause lies in an apparently trivial moment. In that light, we can begin to appreciate just how intimately interwoven our lives are, not metaphorically, but karmically and energetically. Every action affects not just ourselves, but all others, just as others' actions affect us. Even if we consider the elemental lives that are impressed by our thoughts, all actions affect others. As Mr. Judges said, we always act on and in connection with others, affecting them for good or evil. In this sense, every person, every creature, even the elements, the rain, the wind, the traffic jam, may serve as an instrument through which karma plays out. This includes not only conscious karmic agents, like any person with whom we have relations, but also unconscious agents, or those whom we do not know, who we meet by chance, or by those acting completely without a knowledge that we exist. Even without knowing it, some individuals may naturally catalyze karma in others. Judge calls them those among the mass who, from the lives they have led in the past, are gifted or cursed with the power unknown to themselves. He recounts traditions where a meeting of such a person either relieves suffering or intensifies it, allowing karma to be exhausted more swiftly. He compares it to the ancient story of Zanoni, where one's presence precipitates sudden change in others' lives. Think of your own life. Has someone entered it even briefly and brought about some long-sought transformation, a sudden challenge, or a great opportunity? Might you have played that role for someone else? We are all karmic agents, but in a special sense, according to D.K. Mavalankar, a karmic agent is one who concentrates more rapidly than is usual the lines of influence that bring about events, sometimes in a strange and subtle way. Of these, there are two classes. The first, those among the mass who, from the lives they have led in the past, arrive in this one gifted or cursed with the power unknown to themselves. The second, those who by training have the power, or rather have become concentrators of the forces and know it to be the case. Of these are the adepts, both great and small. An instance of this may be found in the life of Zanoni, as related by Bulwer Lytton. It was observed that those who met Zanoni soon showed in their affairs very great changes. There is hardly a doubt that Bulwer Lytton meant to teach and illustrate the law through the story of Zanoni. H.P. Blavatsky taught this more subtle and esoteric aspect of karmic agency, that there are individuals, including adepts and initiates, who can accelerate the karma of another, bringing the karma to fruition more rapidly than might otherwise be the case, like a lens focusing the rays of the sun. This is why the teacher appears only when the student is ready, because the student has to be strong enough to withstand the quickening of his or her karma in the presence of the teacher. And HPB held that there are many people in the world engaged in its affairs who are, without knowing it, karmic agents in this special sense, and continually bring to others good and bad sudden effects, which otherwise would have come to pass slowly, spread over many more days or years, and showing in a number of small events instead of in one. In Patanjali's yoga aphorisms, this is hinted at where it says, when veracity is complete, the yogi becomes the focus for the karma resulting from all works, good and bad. It is a well-known tradition in India, called by the civilized West a superstition that if one should meet and talk with an adept, his karma, good and bad, would come to a head more quickly than usual, and thus that the adept could confer a boon, letting the evil pass and increasing the good. Next, we'll discuss collective karma. Let us widen our view. Karma is not merely individual. Judge writes that we are all reaping what we have sown individually and collectively. Nations, races, and civilizations all have collective karmic destinies. The karma of a society determines its opportunities, trials, and even technological developments. We are born into families, cultures, and nations not by accident, but by affinity, by attraction to a field of experience shaped by our past. Take, for instance, a nation with certain special characteristics. These are the plane of expansion for any entity whose greatest number of affinities are in harmony with those characteristics. The incoming entity, following the law of least resistance, becomes incarnated in that nation, and all karmic effects following such characteristics will accrue to the individual. This will explain what the meaning of such expressions as the karma of nations and what is true of the nation will also apply to the family and groups of individuals born under that nation. And this helps us understand our current age, the Kali Yuga, the Iron Age, not as some tragic fall from grace, but as a field of intensified experience, where karmic effects ripen swiftly and opportunities for transformation abound. In this sense, the Dark Age may offer more rapid progress for the soul. It must, however, be remembered that there are many tendencies which are not exhausted in the act of incarnation. It may happen that the karma which caused an entity to incarnate in any particular surroundings was only strong enough to carry it into physical existence. Being exhausted in that direction, freedom is obtained for the manifestation of other tendencies and karmic effects. For instance, karmic force may cause an entity to incarnate in a humble sphere of life. He may be born as the child of poor parents. The karma follows the entity, endures for a longer or shorter time, and becomes exhausted. From that point, the child takes a line of life totally different from his surroundings. Other affinities engendered by former actions express themselves in their karmic results. The lingering effect of the past karma may still manifest itself in the way of obstacles and obstructions, which are surmounted with varying degrees of success according to their intensity. The karma of incarnation being exhausted, other karma asserts itself. The teachers of truth know all about this age, but they do not mistake the present century for the whole cycle. The older times of European history, for example, when might was right and when darkness prevailed over Western nations, was as much a part of this age from the standpoint of the masters as is the present hour. For the Yuga, to use a Sanskrit word in which we are now, had begun many thousands of years before. And during that period of European darkness, although this Yuga had already begun, there was much light, learning, and civilization in India and China. The meaning of the words present age must therefore be extended over a far greater period than is assigned at present. This deeper time scale is crucial to understanding the magnitude of collective karma. In The Secret Doctrine, H.P. Blavatsky lays out the cyclic nature of history, vast wheels within wheels, and tells us that humanity is in the midst of a cycle that, while dark in some respects, is also filled with opportunity. She writes, "It is the Kali Yuga, the Black Age, an age of spiritual darkness and confusion, when men forget their divine origin and live for the material world." Yet she also tells us that Kali Yuga is paradoxically one of the best ages for spiritual progress, because the effects of karma are more immediate and because the stakes are higher. Actions for good or ill bear fruit faster. In a sense, we are tested more acutely and therefore have the potential to evolve more swiftly. From this perspective, being born in Kali Yuga is not a punishment, but a spiritual opportunity. As the Bhagavad Gita puts it, among thousands of men, perhaps one strives for perfection. And among those who strive, perhaps one knows me in truth. In dark times, the light of a single soul shines more brightly. Thus, for those who endeavor to live spiritually, even imperfectly, they serve as torches for others. In this too, we are karmic agents, not by design, but by example. So what does this mean for how we live day to day? What are the ethical implications? If we are the karmic agents in each other's lives, even without knowing it, then every interaction becomes ethically important. A careless word, a generous gesture, a silent judgment, each can be a vehicle for karmic unfoldment. Do we then bear responsibility for the karma we awaken in others? Judge answers this question carefully. We must act ethically and wisely, but not arrogantly presume we are instruments of punishment. He warns it is wiser not to assume too often to be the reformers or punishers as agents for karma of those who seem to offend. From our present point of view, we cannot see the full tapestry of karmic interrelations, but we can choose to act with compassion and detachment. Here lies one of the most beautiful paradoxes of karma. While we cannot escape the law, we also participate in its unfolding, not as victims, but as co-creators. Mr. Judge says, the universe is worked and guided from within outwards. As above, so it is below. As in heaven, so on earth. This means that our smallest ethical decisions contribute to the moral fabric of the world. They are not just personal, they ripple outward. Every time we act from compassion rather than judgment, we shift the balance of forces, however slightly, in favor of harmony. This does not mean we abandon discernment. Karma does not require us to become passive. In fact, it requires courageous action guided by wisdom. Judge emphasizes, in the face of suffering, it is cowardice and conceit to say it is his karma to suffer and thereby justify inaction. Here is the ethical razor's edge. To assist without attachment, to serve without presumption, to remember that we are not gods dispensing justice, nor bystanders without responsibility, but fellow souls on the path, entrusted with moment-to-moment choices. If someone is suffering and we can help, we should. It is not spiritual to say it is his karma to suffer. That may be true, but we may be the karma that brings relief. In the face of suffering, it is our good karma to relieve it if in our power. And what if we are the unwitting cause of pain? Then let that be a call to greater self-awareness and vigilance, not guilt, but a commitment to refinement. What matters most is intention and motive, the seed from which karmic action springs. Karma is as dependent upon the present personality for its fulfillment as it was upon the former for the initial act. Thus, being who we are here and now matters. Brotherhood and compassion, a theosophical vision of unity that makes sense of it all. This means the means through which the effects of karma can be changed is also clear. A person can have no attachment for a thing he does not think about. Therefore, the first step must be to fix the thought on the highest ideal. In this connection, one remark may be made on the subject of repentance. Repentance is a form of thought in which the mind is constantly recurring to a sin. It has therefore to be avoided if one would set the mind free from sin and its karmic results. All sin has its origin in the mind. The more the mind dwells on any course of conduct, whether with pleasure or pain, the less chance is there for it to become detached from such action. The manas, mind, is the knot of the heart. When that is untied from any object, in other words, when the mind loses its interest in any object, there will no longer be a link between the karma connected with that object and the individual. It is the attitude of mind which draws the karmic cords tightly round the soul. It imprisons the aspirations and binds them with chains of difficulty and obstruction. It is desire that causes the past karma to take form and shape and build the house of clay. It must be through non-attachment that the soul will burst through the walls of pain. It will be only through a change of mind that the karmic burden will be lifted. It will appear, therefore, that although absolutely true that action brings its own result, there is no destruction here of actions, whether good or not good. Coming to one body after another, they become ripened in their respective ways. Yet this ripening is the act of the individual. Free will of man asserts itself, and he becomes his own savior. To the worldly man, karma is a stern nemesis. To the spiritual man, karma unfolds itself in harmony with his highest aspirations. He will look with tranquility alike on past and future, neither dwelling with remorse on the past, nor living in expectation of reward for present action. The spread of the knowledge of the laws of karma and reincarnation, and of a belief in the absolute spiritual unity of all beings, will alone prevent this present drift towards materialism. The cycle must, however, run its course, and until that day is ended, all beneficial causes will of necessity act slowly, and not to the extent they would in a brighter age. As each student lives a better life, and by his example imprints upon the astral light the picture of a higher aspiration acted out in the world, he thus aids souls of advanced development to descend from other spheres where the cycles are dark, that they can no longer stay there. So what are we to make of all of this? The truth is that in the vast, intelligent, and just universe, we are co-creators of karma. Each of us is, knowingly or not, an agent in the unfolding of spiritual evolution for others. But this is not a cause for fear. It is an invitation to live more consciously, more compassionately, and to realize our fundamental unity. We are not separate. To serve another's karma is ultimately to serve our own. As HPB so often reminded us, there is but one life and the one self in all. Recall this image. Picture a vast tapestry woven by countless hands across lives, cultures, and centuries. Each thread you place, every act becomes a path for karma to move, not only in your life, but in the lives of all who are a part of that grand design. Let us then weave wisely and with love. And let us reflect also on the spiritual foundation that makes this whole philosophy coherent, the one life. HPB tells us in the secret doctrine, there is no dead matter. Every atom is alive. Every atom is a soul. When we speak of the unity of all beings, we are not speaking poetically. We are stating a metaphysical fact. All beings, from mineral to man to Mahatma, are expressions of the same universal consciousness, differentiated only by degree, not by kind. That which experiences karma and that which transmits it are not separate. The agent and the recipient are two waves on the same ocean. This vision calls us to a higher ethic, the ethics of brotherhood, not as sentiment, but as a law. It is woven into the very structure of the universe. And as students of theosophy, we're asked not only to understand this, but to live it. As one of the Mahatmas wrote, the greatest of all truths is this, that there is no isolation in the spiritual world. And so we return to where we began, to the mysterious truth that we are karmic agents in one another's lives. May we take that not as a burden, but as a profound calling. May we meet it with love, with responsibility, and with reverence for the one life moving through all. And that concludes the talk. And we can open it up for questions or thoughts.
Thank you, Kathy. Really wonderful talk with a lot of practical advice on how we can apply it to daily lives. I have a quick question. So the word karma, as you pointed out, means at the core means action, right, in Sanskrit. So does it mean that karma manifests itself only when there's action?
Well, karma consists of the action and the reaction. It's all one and the same thing. But if the conditions are not ready, that it won't express itself. So action has to have we're all surrounded by a certain set of circumstances for any action to arise. So those have to be present in order, for the working out of those, for the results of that action. So it would seem, yes. I think Mr. Judge says, if the ego makes use of the karmic opportunities that are able to manifest in each life, but there's still karma held back that is unexpressed until the conditions and the instrument is ready, and then it can manifest.
Yeah, go ahead, Kathy.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say that there's I'm not sure which chapter in the Gita, but Krishna says that no one standeth a moment without acting, right? There's action is a continuous. So can we then assume that karma itself is a continuous, express itself continuously?
Yes, it would definitely seem that way. We're always acting, as you said. There's not a moment where we are not acting. It originates in the mind and through the instruments we have: the body, the desires, the mind. And there's not a moment where there's not a moment where we can just step out of the system and there's isolation from action. We're always acting. So especially in manifestation, we're always in the web of karma, so to speak, that we've woven from the past. And as was mentioned, it's not just within our own personal lives, like what we've done, how we've acted, but it's on the plane of thought as well. Those vibrations essentially are like the ripples in the pond. They go out and then return and affect all others that are, thinking similarly, whether that's for good or, an upward trajectory or a downward trajectory. Even the highest creative intelligences, it said, are acting on some level and producing karma. They're not exempt from the sway of it either. So certainly with our limited perspective, it would be true for us as well. As above, so it is below.
I have a question, Kathy. Thank you for the talk. You said the first part of the talk that Brahma, the creator of the universe, is outside of karma. And also, you said that a manifested absolute is outside of karma. So when the universe manifests, then karma begins. And before, when it's addressed, there is no karma?
So your question is essentially, when does karma begin?
Yes.
Yeah, Brahma is under the sway of karma. I think HPB said the unmanifested absolute is beyond karma, but everything else is under the sway of karma, and it comes into manifestation. Karma is one with the unmanifested logos, and that's an emanation of the law from the absolute, one might say. So karma is sort of part of the law. It's pretty much inherent in anything related to manifestation, even at the highest, most spiritual levels. Does that help?
Yes. So when the universe is, the cosmos is addressed, all the laws are also only in potential.
Yeah, until the conditions in which they can manifest. And that's why these periods and ages are so very long, because it takes, according to our time, very long, like millennia. And these periods are, millions or billions of years for the whole manifestation to come down into a gross physical plane like we're experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
And every cycle is based on the previous. So it seems to this student that there's some mystery of how, when the universe disappears, is withdrawn back to the absolute, how when it's again expressed, it's time for manifestation again, it picks up where it left off. That's some mystery. I don't understand that karma, some knowledge, memory is carried through. I guess like we're the same person when we wake up the next day and we kind of pick up where we left off.
Mm-hmm.
Even though everything's been in abeyance while we sleep.
But that would be because there's a great Manvantara and then there are lesser ones. That's how I think cycles or the manifestation of the universe is. Am I wrong on that? I'm thinking that.
No,
like there's a great cycles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mahamanvantara. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, understanding how the law works, how cycles work, is really important because it can help us in our own sphere, our own mini cycle. Understand by analogy and correspondence how it relates to us. And what I liked about the focus of how this talk turned out was a little bit of an emphasis that we're co-creators. We usually see ourselves as the victims of karma, but we're creators, essentially assigning reality using the mind and ideas, and that we can create a better future if we really like can grasp hold of a firm understanding of karma and our powers.
I have a question, Kathy. So, can any individual escape being a karmic agent? Have the perfected beings escape that? Can we? What is your take on it?
Know that no being can escape being a karmic agent, because, as was said, even if we were to just sit and think, not interact with anyone at all, we would still be affecting others on the plane of thought, on the plane of mind. And so the very highest beings, even though they operate on higher planes, we know those as higher manas and buddhi, higher manas yoked to buddhi, discernment, the highest intelligence, the level of numina, that they very much are affecting things behind the scenes at a macrocosmic level. So that might be even more powerful than using the lower mind or desire, in terms of how those actions could affect all others.
Mhm. So even the Mahatmas and the Para gurus, they are still karmic agents, but at a different level.
It would seem so.
I think there's a sect or group, I don't know how to call it, in India that tries to avoid creating that physical reaction through karma, like, but not by not stepping on an insect, things like that. But as you clearly pointed out, that thoughts are still creating
Exactly. Mhm.
karma through whatever we're affecting.
Yeah, and there's no, I mean, I understand their intent, and not to harm another creature, but like even our physical bodies are made up of infinitesimal lives. Like our gut microbiome has like more different types of bacteria than you can find creatures in the outer world. It's like, and if you think of each cell as its own sort of microenvironment, we affect all our cells through our thought and action. So it's impossible to avoid being a karmic agent, because
perhaps their intent is to minimize them, not to avoid entirely.
Yeah, and we all have to draw the line somewhere, maximize our effectiveness and minimize negative aspects of action. But as was said, in this age, Kali Yuga, it's a good learning experience, because our karma ripens more rapidly and we see the effects of it more rapidly. We meet it more rapidly. So that sort of, I guess, gives us a better idea how it works to actually be in the thick of it.
Lenin has a question. Lenin, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see your hand.
This is a question. I first heard it about 20 years ago. When I heard it, I always dismissed it in my mind immediately as nonsense, not logical, makes no sense. But to my surprise, I remember I heard, I've heard a question being brought up again with Buddhists, and to my surprise, I've heard people tell me it could be possible. This is the question. I remember once someone said this question: is it possible to deflect, to let's say, let someone have his or her karma, let's say bad karma, if you want to call it that, be paid by someone else? Let's say so I were to commit really bad, evil crimes, and I get scot free in life, but someone else completely innocent pays for that crime, and I'm laughing, ha ha ha, an idiot is uh, suffering, and I'm having fun. I can still do more crimes, and I get other people to pay for my karma, and I'll be fine. I always thought that sounds like something you could do in some aspects of life, but karma to this that didn't make sense. But some people have told me that in different spirituality circles, that with black magic that could actually uh happen. And one example someone gave me once is that apparently in infidelity, high levels of infidelity, that it's common that the people that end up paying the karma are the children of a marriage that ends up being broken by infidelity. Um, this is just one example, but I'm asking this question to hear from the perspective of theosophy.
Um, it it may be possible to do that for a period of time, but eventually the affinity that an individual sets up through action will come to meet that person. Maybe if it is possible to pass karmic payment, so to speak, on someone else through nefarious means, HPV is pretty clear that those actions eventually do catch up with the black magician, and they are actually working against nature, and that can only go on so long. And then, you know, a massive payback comes, and it's usually, you know, they can't go on like that forever. And they do meet the results of their action, and it's intense.
I mean, that makes total sense. Yeah, yeah. I agree. I do remember reading that from HPV, and it makes total sense. Yeah, I, I just, yeah, I don't know. I to me it's the first. I just find it sad or hard that someone were to do that even in the literal sense. There have been cases of people in real life have committed crimes and have let others take the fall for them. That's really like, I don't know how someone could have like a clear conscience afterwards, but some
Yeah.
people do.
Yeah, it will eventually catch up with them, and the person who served some penalty for the wrong, even if innocent, does fall under karma too. And it seems that that individual probably learned something from that experience in terms of the soul. And it presumably, you know, would be rewarded somehow for that. Rewarded in the sense of maybe acquiring soul knowledge, or in the rest state after that life, the Devaconic period, you know, the individual gets to live out their highest aspirations. So, you know, there's always a balancing. And this student doesn't know exactly how that would work, but based on everything, you know, in the theosophical literature, it seems that no one can be truly punished for something they didn't do in an ultimate sense. In one life, certainly, like, innocent people have gone to prison and so forth, and that is heartbreaking. But karma can take all those, you know, all those things into account, I guess. when one type of karma exhausts itself, another will exert itself.
Mhm.
So it lasts until the energy or the affinity breaks down, and then the new class comes to bear. And it seems like that might be an example of something like that.
That makes sense.
So in essence, Kathy, what what you're implying is that we own our own actions, right? Whether it's physical or in thought, and that will can only come back to us, whether it's good or bad, right?
Yes, if it gets complicated by involving others, then
Mhm.
it may extend for a longer period than a
Mhm.
shorter period, but it does eventually come back to us. So I think the idea of the tapestry was a good visual, that we are, all our energies, all our lives are interwoven with others, and how can one thread not affect the others if it gets pulled or it doesn't hold. Literally, they're attached to each other.
Mhm.
So, all right. Well, thank you so much for your questions and comments. I guess we'll stop it there and meet back in a few minutes to continue our study of on the Book of Confidences, the dialogues. I think the next one's on love.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank you.